Hey again, Matthew with Conscious Recovery. And when I began making these videos, one of the first things I talked about was what I called foundations of recovery. These are ideas, concepts, and principles that I feel everything else in your recovery needs to be built on that solid foundation. So if you don't agree with or understand these ideas, my model of recovery isn't going to get you very far. So I wanted to now go in and do a deep dive on each of these concepts just to explain why I feel they're so important. These aren't just ideas I've just decided are neat. You know, there's a lot of research and a lot of psychological concepts that are behind them. The first one I want to talk about is addition, not subtraction. A good recovery plan is about addition, not simply subtraction. If you want the simple explanation of what I mean by that, just my, basic telling of it, go back and check in my old videos. You'll find the video about addition, not subtraction. But today I'm talking about the research behind it. So it begins with Dr. Bruce Alexander. Dr. Bruce Alexander is a psychologist out of SFU, not far from where I live, up here in British Columbia. And he did the rat park experiment. Now I'm going to go over this very briefly, but the basic idea is that in a natural environment, in the rat's natural environment with rat friends and food exploration and all the things that give a rat's life joy and meaning, you actually can't get them addicted to cocaine. You can't get them addicted to drugs. You can put the drugs in their little pen. You can give them water laced with drugs, and you can give them water that's just pure and clean, and they'll choose the clean water because they're living a life that has everything they need in it. They have socialization, they have rats to chase after, to mate with, they have games and toys and exercise and adventure and all that stuff. Whatever makes a rat's life meaningful, they have it. So giving them drugs holds no value to them. They try it and then they're like, nope, don't need that, because they're getting all of their needs filled just from the world around them. Okay? Bruce Alexander later expanded on this idea, and he came up with the dislocation theory of addiction decades later. And this one's really interesting. He actually followed certain regions within the United States. And in those regions, whenever there was an economic downturn, whenever the economy had collapsed or there was a factory closing in a town and all of a sudden people were out of work, he noticed that addiction rates went up. And he came up with this theory to explain that when people's lives become difficult, when they lose their job and they lose their home and they lose the only thing that gave their lives meaning, they had meaningful work, they had a community of friends at their job, and all of a sudden their life is disrupted in this way. Well, things aren't going well for them, and so substances suddenly become very appealing. They were never addicted before when everything was going well in life. They were addicted after. So the idea here is that if your life is put together, if you have multiple sources of joy, multiple sources of contentment, of human connection, all the things you need, then the idea of drugs and alcohol doesn't really appeal to you, or at least you can use some substances without getting addicted, right? But when all of these healthy, good things are stripped from your life, all of a sudden, the idea of getting drunk or getting high, that seems to become more of a need. So that's Dr. Bruce Alexander. And that's what fuels my foundation of recovery of addition over subtraction. Okay. We want to add good things into your life. We want to make sure that we are looking at your life like it's a recipe. And you want all of the good ingredients in your recipe if the recipe is going to turn out right. If all of a sudden you take 4 or 5 ingredients out, well then, your recipe for life happiness, life contentment, it's not going to work. And that's when drugs and alcohol become very appealing to you. This is going to segue into a larger conversation about a very simple word, balance, but it is not a simple concept. The idea of balance is a little bit complex, and it's going to be a little bit different for each person. But you need to be able to look at your life like a recipe. Like, what are the inputs? What am I putting in to my life to make sure that I feel happy and content and like things are going the way I want them to? So we're going to talk about balance. We're going to talk about how you can understand it, how you can achieve it, And we're gonna have some exercises that'll help you figure out in detail what the balance of your life should be. Now, you get to determine all of these things. You get to set the standard. But the point is, we need to make this a conscious exercise. We need to really put time and energy and thought into how our life is going to be happy and successful. Because chances are, up until now, you haven't really thought about your life in this way. I hadn't until I went through recovery and I started asking these questions. And even then, it took me years to figure all this out. So, Dr. Bruce Alexander, if you're interested, look him up. A lot of really interesting work there. And just understand that the things you put into your life are going to determine your level of happiness. And if you are all of a sudden overcome with the desire to use drugs or alcohol, chances are there's something real in your life that you need that you're not getting. And if you can figure out what that is and you can replace that missing piece, you're one step closer to a lasting recovery. That's how it worked for me. Hopefully this video helps. Thanks so much. Talk to you later.